Okay, when you think about ancient cities in the Americas, your mind probably jumps to the Maya, maybe the Aztecs, right? But what if I told you that one of the greatest civilizations on the entire continent was hidden right in the heart of the United States? Today, we are digging into that incredible, forgotten chapter of history. So let's just start with a question. If you had to guess, where was the first great city north of Mexico located? Where would you point on a map? Somewhere on the East Coast, maybe? New York? Or out west? California? Well, the answer is actually way more surprising than that. It wasn't on the coasts at all. It was right here, in the incredibly fertile river valleys of the American Midwest, not far from modern-day St. Louis. All right, so let's dive in and really explore this ancient metropolis. And I think you should prepare to kind of reframe everything you thought you knew about what this continent looked like 1,000 years ago. This really gets at a powerful myth that a lot of us were taught, this idea of a vast, empty wilderness. But the reality, it was so much more complex. The archaeology shows a landscape that was just dotted with bustling towns and even massive cities, all connected by this superhighway of the Mississippi River. At the very heart of this world was a city we now call Cahokia. And get this, at its absolute peak, around the year 1100, its population swelled to an estimated 20,000 people. I mean, just think about that. That's a staggering number for any city in that era. And this slide right here perfectly illustrates the scale we're talking about. For a while, Cahokia was more populous than London was at the very same time. This was a true metropolis, an economic, cultural, and religious hub for a huge part of the continent, and most of us have never even heard its name. So the big question is, how on earth did they build a city this massive? And that takes us right into our next section, Blueprints of Earth and Sky, where we're going to look at the incredible engineering of the Mississippian people. The key to all their architecture, the signature feature, is the earthwork. Now, these weren't just simple piles of dirt. They were precisely engineered structures. We're talking giant mounds that served as platforms for temples and homes for the elite, and huge flattened plazas for public gatherings. They literally reshaped the world around them. Building just one of these mounds was a monumental project. First, they'd select and clear a site. Then, workers would dig out earth from enormous pits and carry it, millions and millions of basketfuls, to the construction site. They even layered different kinds of soil for stability, which is a really sophisticated technique, before finishing the whole thing off with a final ritual capping layer. And this is the part that is truly mind-boggling. Every single basket of dirt, every log was moved by human power alone. They had no horses, no carts, no metal shovels. This was a civilization that built a city larger than London, using nothing but stone, wood, and their own two hands. Just incredible. But it wasn't just about size, it was about precision. The layout of these cities was deeply, deeply connected to their understanding of the cosmos. Major structures were built to align with the rising and setting sun on the solstices. They built these huge circles of wooden posts, we call them woodhenges, that worked like giant calendars. The entire city was a map of their universe, laid out on the earth. That incredible intentionality in their architecture, it leads us perfectly into our next section, a society built by design. The city wasn't just a place to live, it was a physical manifestation of their entire social world. So here's the crucial point. If you knew how to read the landscape, the city itself told you everything you needed to know about their beliefs, and more importantly, who was in charge. It was a society that was literally built into the earth. Your social status literally determined your physical elevation. At the very top, closest to the heavens, lived the ruler, the great sun, on the highest, grandest mount. Below them, on smaller mounds, you'd find the priests and the nobles. And everyone else, the artisans, the farmers, they all lived at ground level, always looking up. So if you could walk through a typical Mississippian city, this is what you'd see. A massive central plaza, bigger than dozens of football fields, used for markets and ceremonies. You'd see the towering mounds all around it, often a huge defensive wall made of wooden logs. And, of course, surrounding everything were sprawling fields of corn needed to feed those thousands of residents. The whole thing was a fully integrated urban system. So if this world was so incredible, where did it all go? What happened to them? In our final section, Echoes in the Mounds, we'll take a quick look at the timeline of this civilization and what it left behind. This wasn't some brief flash in the pan. We're talking about a culture that flourished for over 800 years. It rose up, it peaked during what some call the Big Bang at Cahokia, and then, for reasons we're still debating, could have been climate change, disease, social unrest, the great cities were abandoned long before Europeans ever showed up. And that brings us to what I think is the core message of this entire explainer. The American past is not empty. It's not a blank slate. It's a rich, deep, complex landscape. And it is filled with the stories of peoples and civilizations that rose and fell, leaving their marks right on the land itself. The Mississippians are proof positive that the development of cities, of complex societies, of monumental architecture, that's a human story. It's not tied to a specific continent. It happened right here too, and on a massive, awe-inspiring scale. And that leaves us with one final thought. The story of Cahokia was almost completely lost, buried under farms and city suburbs. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other histories, what other lost worlds are still hidden right beneath our feet, just waiting for us to rediscover them?